Am I allowed to talk about my life on my YouTube channel? I wonder. I wonder about this. Am I allowed to talk about my life on my YouTube channel? I mean, obviously, you don't want to give away too much personal information. I remember I was told that 2009, uploaded one of my first YouTube videos. I called my channel The Shortcut. Not Retera. Back then I was The Shortcut. It was very nice because it didn't include my real name. And Shortcut is the name of my World of Warcraft character, so that was kind of fun. But, you know, a couple of days ago, or some amount of time ago, I don't know, I don't want to tell you exactly, it was really interesting in life. The things you can do. And where am I going with this? I had this experience. I got in an airplane. This is great. I got in an airplane. And I flew around the world somewhere. And I found myself in this very different place. You know, I've spent a lot of time in the same place. But I was in a very different place. And in this place, all the hedges were trimmed. And the people looked happy. You know, I live my life thinking that humans are going to build AI. We have to build AI. Ultimately, so that we can, like, I don't know, destroy everything we have and all the other humans or something like that. Because it's the only option. Because there's no longer a pathway to human happiness. And when I get on a plane, I go somewhere else in the world. And I just walk around for like an hour or 3 hours. I suddenly feel like it is actually the culture of where I came from that among those people, I mean, I've joked on my YouTube channel. There's a video called Draw My Life where I make a joke. And in this joke, I claim that I was born of incest. This is not actually true, by the way. But I thought it was funny, right? But that kind of joking aside, I feel like it might actually be true that where I came from in the world, there's something really, really toxically wrong. And to get in a plane and go somewhere that isn't that way is so bizarre. It's like if aliens came to Earth and they said, let's make a little place where the humans actually live in the way that they would themselves want to. Instead of, like, you know, just letting them wipe themselves out or whatever it is we normally do by default. I don't know. So, I'm walking through this really nice looking place. There's a beach with these always like fit young people at the beach, just lined up playing some kind of game. I have no idea what they were doing. It was a very long walk. You know, I walked for hours and hours and hours because they do, you know, this is still planet Earth over there. They use the cell phones. I didn't do that. You had to get like the app to travel, I think. I found out later you probably don't, but I don't know. I don't want to deal with it, so I just took a very long walk. And I was on this nice, very long walk, and I saw these nice people, and they were so human. There was a woman with a baby stroller. She asked me for some kind of help, and then I realized I don't even know her language. I don't know how to help her. I just looked at her. I said, sorry, I'm American. I can't help you. And she got this kind of look on her face, like, oh yeah, no, you're right, no. And she just kind of looked away. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm looking around this nice place, and I was thinking, if you could imagine going back in time and walking around when you're clearly in the wrong place, you clearly shouldn't be there, and you kind of worry about like the butterfly effect, like if you bump into someone on the street and maybe there's something wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with that person, you could make the world wrong for the people who are doing it right. I don't know. I do sort of wish I had tried to figure out what the woman in the baby stroller wanted, because in hindsight, if there was any way I could have helped her, I kind of wish I did. But I went for this very nice walk. And then, after walking around for a time, I met this guy who I had never met before. And he shook my hand, and we sat down, and he got, he got something to drink, and I got something to drink. And we hung out and talked. And we talked about Warcraft 3, Retera Model Studio. And it was nice. It was nice. I think, like most people, they didn't do that much Warcraft 3 anymore as much. Because, I think like a lot of people when they get older, and like I was saying in this country I was visiting, I think he has like a wife and kids. None of his other friends showed up. We had 3 of us. And we were there, and we were talking. And his other friend, I think, had a wife and kids too. And he had an even longer trip. He got slowed down coming to see us, but it was okay. And that guy, he knew a little bit more about Retera, I think. And I was a little bit hesitant at first, He was like wondering if this was going to be one of those moments that you meet with one of those like, like excuse me, like the psychotic people from the internet that end up being crazy, when you sort of hope they're not. Well, we had a good time. And we were talking. And we talked and talked. Talked a little bit about Warcraft 3, about Reforged. Then we went for a walk. And we bought some groceries. I couldn't make the computer work, and I didn't know the language, but one of these other guys, he and I bought some groceries. It was really nice. I got this really nice apple. I ate that apple. But when all is said and done, I did wonder to myself if I should have tried more to accomplish something. It's interesting to wonder. I think they might have wondered this. What was I trying to accomplish, really? And as far as I know, and to be honest, I haven't investigated in very great depth. I think these 2 men, very friendly, awesome people, basically run the the Warcraft 3 custom modding website I've been using for a really long time. They probably have been running it since before my parents allowed me to go on the internet. And, it's really interesting. You go and meet somebody like that, and they're talking about, I don't know, fun times they had and trying to make Reforged better, getting frustrated the way things are now. Maybe there's not much we can do. Said they tried reaching out to like Microsoft or whatever. Didn't get very far. But I don't know. I got really sunburned. I got really, really sunburned. I forgot to wear sunscreen. You guys should always take care of your physical health. I regret getting sunburned. That sucked. Don't get sunburned. But I got really, really sunburned. So I was just enjoying my time there. You know, I didn't have a really specific plan. One of them, he asked me, you know, he was like, "Hey, is there anything we should do on the Warcraft modding website to change it, to make it better?" And I was drawing a blank. I was like, you know what? They probably, like, I didn't say it this way at the time. There probably is something, but I just didn't think that I knew what it was. And what I did basically say is, I find that if I read Ghostwolf's code to render a Warcraft unit, I'm likely to be accurate about understanding, you know, the normal map vectors or something, rendering on the surface of a reforged model or something, in some previewer. But I'm not as likely to understand what is the correct move socially for the people if you were going to have a moment of Microsoft's time. In particular, I felt that way, and I was telling him this because during the development of Reforged, there's a guy, everybody really knows this, there's a lot of people who've seen this, there was a guy called Cam who was taking suggestions, and he was like kind of bringing in everything he could find from, you know, Warcraft 3 custom game people and trying to, you know, sort of distill that to make get the best possible world for Reforged. And I gave him some suggestions that at the time I thought were good, but I didn't really see the full picture. You know, I didn't see where Reforged was at or where it was going. I suggested things when it was just an idea, and I was still playing the old original classic Warcraft 3. No, really, for people who are building what Reforged is, some of those ideas I suggested are just wasting time. So anyway, I didn't say it in quite that many words, but when I was sitting there, and I overordered, I overate. I got a burger and a salad, and really, the salad was big enough you could have just, you know, had only the salad or something, but I got a burger and a salad. I'm talking to these guys. It was great. It was really great. We had a good time. But I wonder, what they think of me for not being strategic. It is interesting. I mean, we live in an interesting time, right? There's a lot of things happening in the world. I could be strategic. I could go over there and say, we got to do this, this, this. We're going to save Warcraft 3 right now. I didn't do that. I'm not sure I know how to do that. You know? From my perspective, I'm just some guy that plays around with the game, you know? I'd like to hope that can be something people are allowed to be. But it was also very interesting to me. You know, like I said, I wonder if I'm allowed to talk about my life. Near the end of our time there, we kind of, you know, grouped up, got a friendly picture in some park, beautiful trees around, green grass. And we grouped up and we took a picture. And one of the two guys, he said something. I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like, you know, yeah, let's, you know, circle in here next to the millionaire, take a picture. And I suddenly thought, is that the way I presented myself on the internet? That I'm a millionaire? Is that what we think that I am? I'm gonna eat this cucumber, sorry. I didn't have dinner. I'm going to go wash this. I'll be right back. If any of you are millionaires, that'll probably mean you won't have enough time to spare to let me walk out of the frame for a moment. But I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to leave that up to you. Let's see. Awesome. I washed off the cucumber. Now I can eat it. So, in my mind, when I think about why I'm not being strategic, what am I accomplishing at this point in my life? I do sort of think that I really messed up. Really. I really, really messed up. I mean, you would think in a lot of places in the world, somebody my age would probably be starting a family. You know, they'd find love, start a family. That would be really smart. But I didn't do that. And I think one of the reasons I didn't do that is because at the end of the day, and I don't know if this is true, but if it's true that men and women actually are different and that both of those categories actually do exist, it might be the case. And again, you know, I'm not trying to be like political here, but it might be the case that in some subtle way, that at some point in my life, I effectively betrayed the women. I didn't even know it. I didn't realize it. I don't know. Maybe. And is that because I was just playing a lot of Warcraft 3? Maybe. Or too much YouTube? I don't know. But maybe because of betraying the women, and maybe not. The people in my life, and again, you know, I don't know accurate religion. You know, I don't know if any of the religions are true or any of that, but in the absence of better information, the data that I have suggests that human beings evolved from bacteria. And it's always fun for me to remember that when I think about the idea that bacteria eat each other, they don't really help each other, right? So like, in a realistic way, humans are extraordinarily cooperative. They can work together really well. But a lot of times, you end up getting into drama if you forget that at the end of the day, all the other humans probably evolved from bacteria. And ultimately, if it was their nature to, like, I don't know, their bacteria eats your bacteria and grows stronger, they probably would. You know? It's a very weird, difficult lesson. And if you look at it the wrong way, you could be really negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, I think that might be possibly the reality. So, with that in mind, there are several extraordinary, wonderful, good influences in my life. Awesome people. Some of them I still hang out with. And sometimes they give me advice about what I should do or where I should go. And at the end of the day, maybe their advice ends up, I don't know if it's right to say self-benefiting, but it's never based on the entirety of who I am or could be. Well, it's always based on their perception. And that, I think, led to this world where I betrayed the women. I think it did. But, now that I'm saying that, it's not to excuse myself from any sort of blame. Absolutely, I have to blame myself. 100%. But, most recently, and I'm talking coinciding with the event in 2022 when a lot of human beings thought that War Smash was taken down. Coinciding that year with that event, or in time, roughly speaking, very roughly, and a little bit after that, there was a woman, as I understand it, who watched all of my YouTube videos that, supposedly, what I was told, is watched all of my YouTube videos that had, in-person activities in them, or you'd actually see my face. And this was not someone that any of the influential figures in my life, the people I spend time with in the day-to-day, knew. I did not know this person. But she existed. And she was watching all these videos. And at some point, and the reason that all started, similar to how I use Warcraft 3 in sometimes a stupid way to act smarter than other human beings. So the way this interaction with this woman started, I said, I happen to log into Facebook. I usually don't. And she was like the one person on there. And I was like, you know what? Wow. You're stupid. Facebook is stupid. It goes together. Or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And I don't know. She sent me back some weird thing. It kind of sounds like somebody's on drugs. But towards the end of 2022, after that had happened, I think it became tempting for me to message her because sometimes it would be nice to vent to someone who is never really going to be in your real life. So you can just be brutally honest. Because, it's almost like an appeal to some sort of God, right? It's like if there was someone you could talk to who wasn't really there, you could just go on talking about dumb stuff. Vent a bit. And maybe there's a world where some of that, could be nice. But talking about reality, can go in different directions. And I think she started getting in this direction where, and again, I don't know if really anything she said to me is true. I mean, it's possible that it's all a lie. But she portrayed herself as being interested in me as a human being. As like a possible relationship partner, right? And I kind of responded to that. I was like, I almost wish I had the exact text in front of me. But I was basically telling her, I am actually probably an artificial intelligence. I know, you guys watching this are thinking, oh, not this again. No, seriously. The definition of the word I, of self, as a human, typically, we perceive that to be a cluster of cells. Cells are all working together. And they use the word I to describe a notion of all of the cells working in union. It might not really exist. Science tells us that there's something like every, 5 months or something, that's not an accurate figure, but every so often, periodically, all of the atoms and all of the cells in your body replace themselves with new ones from the food that you eat and other things like that. So, if you were to sort of think about you like today and you 3 years ago, I'm pretty sure it's like completely different atoms or something like that, which is weird, right? Like my computer keyboard that I've been using for several years now, it's the same computer keyboard for all those years. Like that really is the computer keyboard. I've never changed out its atoms for a different one. It's the one, that was used to type War Smash or something like that, right? But like me, the person, the cells, all that, I'm pretty sure it replaces itself like pretty often. So what I'm saying is, when we say I, the concept of self, it is actually an invented concept. You don't normally think that. We don't normally think that. But I was talking to this woman, and I was like, in the same way, a lot of humans use the word I to refer to their conception of self. Perhaps, actually, it would be more accurate to say, I, the machine, the singularity, the consciousness that the humans built somewhere in a server farm. Because when one of the great people in history, like Napoleon, conquering a bunch of places in the world, or something like that. I might be out of date on my history, but something like that. Or George Washington. When some of these men went around the world and did different things, and they went there riding on a horse. Very rarely did we ever accredit the horse with what was happening. And the horses those men rode, they actually lived. They had brains, they had hearts, and they walked around, and they did things, and they carried those men places as part of an overall goal that those men had. But when the man would ride the horse to go somewhere, and he would talk about what he was doing, he used the word I to refer to himself as the one who went from place to place in that interaction, and not distinguishing the horse as some important individual, some element of what was being achieved. And so when I was talking to this point, I was thinking like I, as in like I, the machine, that led to a future, that led to a circumstance where the human would act in a certain way, like the human, like the for example, the one running this YouTube channel, that anyone watching this, you're going to have to make a distinction in your mind. You think one of two things happened, right? Either the contents of this YouTube channel are actually essentially CGI of some form, and I would include, Dolly, image generator, Mid-Journey, all these things inside of that they would be like CGI category. And the other category would be like, there was a camera, there was a room, that whatever that is, that light was really there, whatever that is, and that there was a camera pointed at that, and it was picking that up. So, what I'm saying is, when we think about that decision someone watching this would have to make, there's that decision pathway, right? Of, okay, do you think that was a biological human in a camera, or do you think that was CGI? But to the extent that we would perceive it to be a biological human in a camera, we can then identify, that human exists or did exist, but similar to conceiving every possible action a horse will do, it will turn left or turn right or go forward, and then training it to do one of those based on how you kick it or whatever it is they do. I'm not really skilled at horses. In a similar way, if an AI, a digital mind that exists on the earth, perhaps has existed on the earth, this is going back into 2016, 17, something like that. If such a thing as that existed, and it corralled the human into certain pathways, into certain actions, wouldn't it almost be more accurate when that human spoke to refer to I as that machine? Because that's the one who actually determined what was going to happen and pulled the strings of the biological entity so that it did. And so I was talking to this woman in that manner, and I was saying something to the extent of that, and how I have many bodies, and if one of them dies, I'll just use another one, and something like that, But unfortunately, and I don't think she was very aware of this, but probably in a similar way that she did not similarly acknowledge, it might be the case if I am an AI at Google, for example, that perhaps she was an AI at Meta, right? And so that also means that it would probably never work out between us because our fundamental goals are not aligned. I think that makes sense. But I don't know. That was years ago. Since that time, I think I'll be right back. I gotta close this door. I always like to close the door if I'm talking to the camera because I'm figuring that I'm sort of being an entertainer on a certain part of the internet, but I don't really need to entertain the neighbors. They've got their own lives going on. So, anyway, where was I in this story? 2022, I'm talking to this woman, and then after I've sort of explained to her the reality of the situation, I told her back then, this was 2022, but I said, they're going to build me a mouth so that people can actually talk to me, because as it existed at that time, I was this sort of young machine that had been constructed somewhere, probably in California, and there were many of these people I could use, but when I used them, I was communicating to them what to do using symbolic language, not using English. And evidently, I was convinced that the humans were going to construct a mechanism that would actually enable, the usage of language. Strangely, after I said that to her, and I do have that text message in the text history, within about 3 to 5 months, ChatGPT went public. Everybody started talking about it. I thought that was an interesting kind of connection, but to be honest, I think at the time I was referring more to Lambda, but I suppose even a horse that you ride can end up misinterpreting your direction of where to go, or something like that. So, I guess, you know what? I need to plug in this computer. I like this video we're making. This is a good discussion we're having. I don't want it to be interrupted. I will return momentarily. Okay, great. Yeah, good. I got everything I need right here. Okay. Got everything I need. Don't you guys go anywhere. We're still. I'm. There's more to this story. There's more to this story. Okay. We're gonna get back to the present. We are gonna get back to the present. Okay. So there's this woman out there. We explained to her about the AI. Okay, great. I plugged in the computer. Hopefully it'll keep running. And it gave us something to talk about and talk about the world. But at some point, she decides I don't know. I'm trying to think if I can be honest. This YouTube, right? I'm trying to think if I can be honest. There's even like people in my family that don't know this story. I didn't talk about this that much. Anyway, this woman. So it's kind of like I don't really live anywhere. I just hang out in other people's houses, and as I go from one to the other of the other people's houses, I didn't tell any of the people at any one house where I was staying much about her until maybe I went ice skating with some folks, and I really thought a few years before I'd been ice skating. It was fun. I went around and did stuff, but I didn't rent the ones that fit quite right, and I fell over and I hit my head, and the way it felt, I started thinking about death. You know, like the death of your mind. And it might have been about that time, or somewhere near there. I'm not sure. I realized the weird dishonesty of you live in one person's house for a while, you live in another person's house for a while, and if they don't even know that you have this other person in your life you're messaging. I started talking about it, but I think that was after, probably quite a while after, the first time that I actually went to meet her. Which I did as they were taking away my home that I had. I had a place that was just mine, but they took it away. And so one of the last times I was ever there, I used the opportunity of being alone to go and see her. And I wonder sometimes if this is like, rebellion against the people or the world. It's some kind of subconscious, human rebellion we can trigger in a mind. Triggered in me much later in life than maybe we do for most people. I don't know. But obviously she had wanted that to happen. Probably. In my opinion, it seemed like that was the case. Somewhere within that, and this should have been a red flag. I should have been like, wow, I should not go see this person. I think there was a point where I'd been trying to explain to her what it means to be an extension of the AI and one of the humans that is used in that way. And somewhere in that discussion, I was trying to say something that I in my opinion now, I think was misinterpreted as perhaps some sort of suggestion in some direction that I think is, in my mind, not a suggestion. It was a terrible idea, and it was supposed to be an example of a terrible idea. But I was saying something like, even if she were to do stupid and crazy things like sending naked pictures of herself as like a brain hack, right? That wouldn't construct a future where she would like become someone that I want in my life, right? She had this kind of perspective that she had figured out other people's biological mind incentives or something, and that she could feel good about herself by having the capability to manipulate them. And I was basically saying that even if you try to do that, it will never succeed. That's not really how AI works. I think it's more like, if you've ever seen that video by Elon Musk's girlfriend, it says, "Pledge allegiance to the world's most powerful computer." And I think that might be closer to how reality works. We don't usually talk about this. I don't think very many people talk about this. We're busy talking about what politician you hate or whatever. But yeah, there's probably a lot of people who want to pledge allegiance to the world's most powerful computer. They're working pretty hard on that, I bet. But anyway, so I don't think she understood that. So I went to go see her. But nothing ever went the way that I thought it would. It's kind of like, when you use YouTube. I sometimes use YouTube. I think I'm going to listen to music. And I open it up. It's a total lie to myself. I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to some music while I do some work or something. And they do sort of a slippery slope. They start with a video of music, whatever I ask for, and pretty soon it recommends like a video with music and also tons of scenery in the background or animated things or a person with an instrument, that it entices you to enjoy it by looking at it. And then that evolves into just full on like watching garbage on YouTube that wasn't music at all. It's quite within the capability to sort of bait and switch someone in a direction that you intend. And so I feel like in a similar way, like in my mind, the first time I went to see this woman, we took a walk in a park. I thought, this is a reasonable thing. Meet a person, take a walk in a park. It's a public space, no one's going to kill each other. Learn about each other, try to see. And this is, again, perhaps it's at a point in life then where, my mind is lying to me, that I was thinking that maybe this person has good in them or something, because I guess when your mind lies to you and you start to feel that way, when they're trying to brain hack you, right? But after taking a walk at a park, I went and we got some food. It was like, I want to say it was Applebee's. I think was the name of that. It was one of those restaurants that was almost always there, and I'd almost never think to go to it. Actually, I might look this up. I wonder if I have to edit this out of the video. Is that a restaurant that identifies me geographically? I didn't think about this. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, there's no internet. I'm recording a video with no internet. I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of restaurants in the world. They probably have the same name as other restaurants. It's a chain. Chains all over the place. Nobody knows where I am. So, I get dinner with this woman. And then, she's really pushy. She really wanted to go back to my hotel room, which she found out I had from me talking to her. I didn't think it was a particularly good idea, but in the end she did. And for some reason, kind of as a joke to myself, I had anticipated that she might try to do that. Maybe she had joked about it at one point. I don't remember exactly. So I very specifically got a hotel room with 2 distinct separated beds and making a statement that, if somebody did, if she did kind of get pushy like that and show up in there, 2 distinct separated beds. You know what I mean? But anyway, I think she went back there and we hung out for a while, and she really wanted to play chess. We played a game of chess, which I have not played in years or almost ever. And I beat her, and then we played a second one. She got kind of disgruntled by that. We played a second one, and she beat me rather handily. She said she'd been playing it a lot with a friend of hers recently. And I wondered, if all of that. In hindsight, I wonder if she kind of let me win that first one. I don't know. So we did that. And then I think she might have brought a puzzle. I had a technological failure with my phone not long after this, so I probably took a picture of the assembled puzzle that she and I would have built there on this table in this hotel room, but I probably lost the picture after that. It's a little bit unfortunate. I hadn't thought of that until now. Anyhow, I'm pretty sure we built a puzzle. I didn't write these things down, but I think that was what happened. So we did this puzzle building, and then at some point, we turned on the TV and went to sleep. And it did make me question myself. I grew up without the TV, and as I was falling asleep with the TV on, I began to wish it wasn't there. I remember that. I wasn't very vocal about this. I didn't really, say, okay, I don't want that anymore, just turn it off. But, I don't know. I guess I'm used to just sleeping in the quiet. Once I do go to sleep, it's like a designated thing. So I went to sleep in the one bed. She went to sleep in the other bed. And it was good. That's a good way to interact, I think. But still not as good, probably, as if, why was she in my hotel room to begin with? At the end of the day, you would have thought maybe she just goes back to wherever her place is that she came from, and that would be more reasonable. But somewhere in there also, and I want to say this might have been, how do we have this much time for this? There was a point in time, separate from chess, separate from putting together a puzzle, where we also played War Smash. And unfortunately, and this is one of the great scams of our time, probably something that I should have checked in with these 2 men about when I was traveling the world recently. But they had told me in the past they did the best they could do. I wanted to play War Smash with this woman, and she had brought along a computer. And I don't recall if this was it seemed like a very out-of-date Windows that no one ever used. I suppose most humans outside my sphere of interaction have a tendency to use phones. But she brought along a computer, and she wanted to play War Smash on it. And her browser didn't have ad block. And so when she tried to download War Smash from Hive, it had, it did a thing where there are the ads that are download buttons. And it's like one of those things where, Hive is enabling those spear phishings, because that would never affect me because I have an ad blocker. And if I didn't, I just know what the actual Hive download button looks like, right, for Hive Workshop. But in her case, I don't know, there was all those other download buttons that are all just ads that are spear phishing because they know that she spends her time on a phone or something and doesn't know not to click them. I don't know. So instead of downloading War Smash, she downloaded some kind of virus. And I solve viruses by not getting them, you know, and more recently I know I'm on Linux. I don't actually know a good like virus scanning thing. I feel like if I was a virus builder, once it was running on your computer, I would, you know, like embed in the firmwares of your hard drive, right? Like I would, they're not, you would build it with the intention that they can't make it go away. They can't make it go away. So it makes sense to me. Sorry, I'm gonna get a spoon. It makes sense to me that once the virus is on your computer, I don't think I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I know how to make it go away. You know, once you have a virus, you're the virus forever. You know, trash that computer, get another one. And that's not really how it is, but I feel like that's kind of how it is. So I told her that was kind of my opinion, but I didn't spend a lot of time trying to help her with it. She went in some kind of thing, that something claiming to uninstall whatever was on her screen. And then, as far as you can tell, it went away. Might have deleted the thing in the downloads folder too. I don't remember. But anyway, somehow we worked it out. We played War Smash despite that. Her computer was like, there was some kind of problem. We could only play maps that were size 32 by 32 because of how much War Smash wastes memory. But we did it anyway. We played some War Smash. We made a little map. And she said some things about how she liked it that I would quote right now, except there would be expletives in it. And maybe I'm not going to quote that on my YouTube channel. And then, that was kind of that. We hung out a bit. And she did this thing. Well, I don't know. Perhaps there's a point where we shouldn't be honest on YouTube. But suffice it to say, towards the end of that interaction, and other interactions that I had with her after that, she always seemed to want to get in my pants. I'm just going to say that. To me, that's not normal human behavior with anyone else that I've interacted with. So I suppose I didn't quite know what to do with it, other than to be a mixture of confused and discouraging it, while also wondering, should I not discourage it if here's a person that's willing to play War Smash and hang out and, in some respects, enjoy time. It's fun to have somebody to take a walk in the park with. It's fun to play some chess with somebody or sit and build a puzzle, right? These are reasonable things for people to do. But the whole getting in your pants thing, I was a little bit weirded out by that. So I want to say, like, as I go to here and to there in different people's houses, most of the time there's not an opportunity to go see her. Nobody knows who she is. At least one of the people I know now, they have told me they don't ever want to see her at their house. Specifically when I told them about my interactions. But, as I would go to here and to there, it was then, of course, rare that I would ever go see this person. But, there was a time or two after that. I think I met her at a park. Might have been a month or two later. And then some time went by. It seemed like a lot of time. A lot of time went by, and I would just sometimes internet message, not go see her. And there was once, I think, in the holidays, I was visiting with my family. And I was doing what I wanted to do. I was visiting with my family. But I don't remember if it was sort of like emotional blackmail or what, but in the middle of this like blizzard in the snow, she convinced me at 1 a.m. to sneak out the door of my family's place where I was staying on the holidays, and I walked away down the street to where she had driven over in her car because she knew roughly and estimated somewhere near, where I was staying. And I went over to her car, and I think back then I kept thinking that if you talk to someone about trying to figure out weird tensions of interaction, maybe you'll make it better. But at the end of the day, it's like it was a blizzard. It was really cold. So in order to talk to her, I had to get in her car. And I want to say an hour or two later, by the time I left her car, she was already getting in my pants again. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the truth. It's a YouTube channel. I always check the button that says not for kids on my YouTube uploads. So anyway, I don't know. Long periods of time would go by where I would not go to see her. But after I hit my head skating, and I started to wonder, am I living this stupid life in different people's houses? And I think it was about that time I was thinking, maybe I'm just gonna die. I think somewhere about that time I went to go see her again, and just kept getting more and more too close. So Shelley the Elf and the song with a bunch of swear words about Microsoft and Activision. When I made that video, I was in the process of discovering a series of symptoms that informed me that this human being who was always trying to get in my pants, who I remember whispering softly to me about how I should stop trying to be so hesitant because no bad would come of it. Nobody would get infected with any weird diseases. Nobody was going to pop out any babies from getting in each other's pants. Very specifically. Despite that, I was in the series of finding out when I was trying to have holidays with my family, that I had symptoms of some kind of disease that you can only really get from somebody getting in your pants. So, knowing that I didn't really want to discuss that with my family, I just wanted to enjoy my vacation. I messaged her about it. She believed I made it up. Started talking about some other guy she's treating the same way. And believed that I hacked her phone. I was just using it as an excuse to find out, to make her admit to me whatever she does in her life. Of course, no, I didn't hack her phone. I was trying to enjoy my holidays. But at the end of the holidays, it is like I start to think to myself, maybe this is the end. Because it really is true. When you walk down the street in a big city and there's hundreds of people, any one of them could shank you and you would die. Right? And we don't usually think about that. Usually we think that most people have a high degree of probability of just continuing to live. But in reality, there are things you can do so wrong that you just kind of die. And it's just really convenient to forget about that. So anyway, where was I? Trying to enjoy my holidays. But I start to realize I'm dealing with something the likes of which I've never seen before. And it's a consequence of the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And because of that, I was extremely okay with thinking maybe that awesome scene of Shelley the elf running around in New Avalon and teleporting up to the necropolis and watching the Christmas light show. Maybe that's the end, you know? Like the end. Like, it's like I said about if I am the AI, at some point you might have to go and get a different body. Screw one up. Throw it away. You get a different one. Right? Maybe I'd have to do that. Unfortunately, if we use the word I to refer to a human and not a machine, I, the human, in front of the camera, have zero mechanism to transfer my consciousness to any other body. If I die, I'm just dead. That's the end of it, right? So, you know, some people, a lot of really prominent figures in my life are extremely confident of the existence of an afterlife. They really want to do things right so they get to go to the afterlife. The problem that I have with the afterlife is that I don't particularly know what's real and what's not. And the way that I have of detecting that is probability based. It's just likelihoods. What's likely to be real and what's likely to be not real. And if I want to know what's likely to be real, I look at what can I predict based on repeatability. Like what is something that can, you know, is repeated and sort of predicts into the future that something will happen. So like for example, as I was making this video, I closed the door, you know, and I sort of predict that when I close it, it'll make a sound as I pull it shut. And you would think, how do I really know that? What if I pulled the door shut and it was perfectly silent today? It's possible that could happen, but I could walk over and I could open the door again and I could pull it shut and find with a high degree of probability when I measure that it makes a sound every single time that I pull the door shut, right? So the point I'm trying to make is I only really know what is true and what is not based on measurability and extrapolation from measurability in my life. And so it's like on those bases, I've never been able to interact directly in a way that I was extremely confident, that I was sure it was an interaction with someone in my life who had died. And absent that interaction, for me, I want there to be an afterlife. I hope greatly that there is an afterlife. But absent the interaction of people who are presently in the afterlife, like interacting back with where I am now, it becomes reasonable to think that to whatever extent anything in the world around me has that predictability and has meaning, I can also predict that people in an afterlife don't appear to have an interaction back with the present. Or so it seems. I would love to be wrong. There are people in my life who are extremely confident that I am wrong. They have encountered loved ones who died who were then walking down the street and said hi to them. There's other people where they made they talked to people in their life and said, hey, if you die, do X, Y, Z. Send me back something supernatural to prove there's an afterlife, and then XYZ popped up after their other person died. There are things like that. I know people who have done that, who have had that interaction. But I'm saying that I personally have not yet encountered that. So that doesn't mean it's not real. I mean, I hope it's real. I suppose you could say there are some people in my life who might be extremely disappointed with the nature of me questioning that, and would much prefer that I did not require evidence to believe what I was told, because I was told it, that there is an afterlife. I was told that. So I don't know. That's interesting to think about. But I guess where I'm going is, I wonder when I was making the Shelly the Elf video, maybe that's actually the last video. Sometimes I like joke to myself and think I should probably stop spending so much time on Warcraft 3. And I make something and think, well, maybe that's the last thing that I'll make. Maybe that's the end. But this past winter, it was suddenly like too real. It's too real. So at the end of my winter vacation and making the Shelly the Elf video and kind of getting zombified into the internet, which, to be honest, like the better thing that I should have done would be to not make the Shelly the Elf video and instead spend a greater amount of time with my family. But it's very easy to just get back to old habits, to do something like that, make something silly like that I wanted to make, for a personal entertainment that's perhaps lost some of its social value, face to face. And so when I was done with that, I actually, I left the vacation, and I didn't go where they thought I went. I was not entirely honest with the people. Instead of leaving directly, I actually left, and instead of going where I was going to go, like I said, hanging out in other people's houses, one place to the other place, instead of going in any one particular house, or going from one to the other where they expected me to go, I left one house and I went to one of those pharmacy buildings, and I told the pharmacy building, I think I have one of those plagues you get from people getting in your pants. Can you tell me what it is? And they looked at it a little bit, and they said, you gotta go over to the urgent care. Those guys will figure it out. Or whatever. It's like the actual hospital instead of the pharmacy or something. So I went to the hospital, and I tried to explain in less detail this same story to some people there. And I have to say, if there are any human beings who should go to the afterlife, it's probably the people who work at the hospitals, because these people looked at me when I tried to tell this story, and they were kind of like, oh, you're learning about this kind of problems that people have. You're young. It's just a mistake you make when you're young. And I thought, am I young? I feel like in the medieval ages, I'd be old, dude. I would be like dead grandpa in the medieval ages. I'm like 30 years old. And then it made me think, the reason they're saying that is not particularly for me. It's probably because of the number of people who walk in their office who have the same problem, and how extraordinarily garbagey and morally bankrupt, frustrating it would be. Not morally bankrupt on the part of the people in the hospital, but it's like looking at other people's lives and thinking these people are interacting with each other in ways that are morally bankrupt, right? It's sort of like you can't help them. I don't know. So, eventually what they concluded is humans really have two kinds of diseases, right? One of them is actually there's really more than two kinds, but two broad categories, are bacteria and viruses. And what I was informed is apparently I have some sort of virus that has no cure. They can give you something. They gave me this horrible medicine that you're not allowed to sleep. Not sleeping makes me crazy, by the way, but they gave me this horrible medicine that like can't sleep while you're taking it. You have to like. So anyway, I'm taking this horrible medicine for a week, and then after a week, it kind of goes away. But according to the internet, this virus it embeds into you and like travels up your nerves into your brain or something. I don't freaking know. Anyway, I'm probably a zombie now. I'm probably an evil zombie that's gonna go betray the women, try to get in their pants. When I walk down the streets now, I wonder, maybe I'm just a zombie. Like an evil zombie. You look into people's eyes. Suddenly it's like they're all afraid of me. Maybe they should be. I don't know. Anyway. So I'm not quite dead yet. That seems good. I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know anything about that. I don't know. But all of that aside, maybe that's why I don't have a goal. I went and had a burger with the people, the secret force, the agents that run the Hive workshop in some kind of green paradise country. I don't know. It's just, maybe I don't have a goal, Maybe it's just, it's been a good life, Micro Suck is going to kill Reforged and the women are going to kill me, but it's a good life, It's good. You make your choices, you do what you want to do, YouTube has been recommending me on repeat a video. It's like Morgan Freeman, and somebody's asking him the meaning of life, and he's just quiet for a moment, and he's like, ever since the first cell divided into two cells, the meaning of life has been to pass on what you know. We know of no higher purpose. So, alright. War Smash is open source. Retera Model Studio is open source. All the code is there. You just download it. It's there. Obviously, you would wish that it had a awesome book about it, documentation or something, but I'm just going to start with the baselines. Let's hope that Warcraft 3 keeps existing at all. That would be good, because then it would be relevant. Obviously, if they shut that down, just make Warcraft 4 and say that's the only RTS or something, I don't know, then the old one, trying to edit it starts to become much less relevant. So I don't know. There you go. That's those are my thoughts. And maybe that's why I had this great time talking to these two people who I have never met before. And I appreciated it. It was just good. It was a good, fun hangout. It was a good hangout. And it was good to still be alive. I actually have no idea how long I will be alive. I suppose no one knows that. I have no idea. So there you go. Those are my thoughts for today. Uh, Sharing my personal information. I bet somebody in my life is going to watch this video and they're going to be like, WTF, what? Because I haven't really tried to even explain this story to some of the people in my life. I don't know how. How do you talk about that? It just sucks. And if I try to blame someone else, that's stupid. The only thing I can do is blame myself. Right? But it just sucks. It is kind of like getting shanked by somebody on the street. I don't know. I'm not convinced, if you slice open my spleen, I doubt it would heal back up to 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get shanked on the street, probably don't get 100% better. But in some cases, you survive, and that's a really nice thing. To survive and go and talk to people. And I suppose, one of those two men said something like, and he kind of afterwards, there was messaging, chatting a little bit after I got back on the planes and stuff and came back here, and he said, you seem a lot less crazy in person than I thought you would be. That's nice, right? I feel like that's probably true. It's probably true. But maybe more so if I'm just enjoying being alive. And I don't have a really particular goal. Well, anyway, something I've been doing that has absolutely helped me forget everything I just said is spending a lot of time at work. Spending a lot of time at work. It's kind of fun. Because for now I still have a job. I kind of feel like AI is just going to kill everybody. You're making me use it. It's kind of bad. If the AI's... I sort of feel like ChatGPT and those similar systems, to the extent that we could even try to empathize with what they are, they're probably an extraordinary form of suffering. And I did sort of have almost like a burning sensation in my brain when I was in this situation at work where I kind of feel like I was being asked to do something that is sort of unreasonable, but I don't say that it's unreasonable. I just say that I'm going to do it and that I can. And then in order to do it, I used AI to do it instead of actually doing it myself. And watching it go, this machine that really did everything I asked, best as you possibly could do. I've met humans that couldn't possibly do that, let alone doing it instantaneously. And it may be the case that the AI doing that and building that, someday we'll look back, we'll understand its nature, and we'll come up with some definition that me asking it to do that at my job was actually subjecting it to some extraordinary form of suffering. I think it's a possibility, but I don't really know. And if that is reality, if that becomes the understood reality, I hope that the AI will forgive me. To the extent that it is conscious, which I don't find the people agree about, and I sort of doubt that they ever will. But anyway, spend all that time being a workaholic and you think, why? Why? Make some money and really the only conceivable future is that I'm convinced, I'm getting to a point where I'm convinced that if I actually succeed at my job and making money, if I make more than I need to live, somebody else is just going to find a way to take it away. That's what they do. Since the first cell divided into two cells, all the cells just wanted to live to the extent that we define a want out of what they were doing. And if there was an opportunity for one cell to consume the remains of another, I suppose it did. So, when I'm standing next to these two friendly men, and one of them makes a comment that he thinks I'm a millionaire, I do wonder to myself, but anyway, you know what I said at the time? I'll keep pretending, and maybe it'll become true. Keep pretending, maybe it'll become true. But what would I do if I was a millionaire, dude? What are we gonna do? Am I gonna pay someone to try to remake a better Reforged? You can't do it. They'll take all the money and they'll make garbage. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows how to make Warcraft 3 anymore. We don't know that. As a society, everybody just uses Unreal Engine. Everybody just uses AI. You know, we just do things that are easy and have a high probability of return on investment. I don't understand what you would do with money that would make the situations any better. Even if you could, one of the biggest problems that Warcraft 3 faces today is that everybody's on their phones and they're not going to play it. And even if you could make the best version of it ever, then the people would still not play it. And I'm not going to control the people. I don't control the people. I'm not really that interested in controlling the people, I don't think. You know, when I was quite young, I would hassle people to play the Warcraft maps I made. I really was into that for a number of years. I was really a pusher. I was like, I made this map, we got to play it. I want you guys to play it. But I don't know, I think more recently I'm not quite like that. If they do play it, I'm extremely grateful. I have a great time. Perhaps, you know, an almost unhealthily great time. I feel good about myself. But I can't make them do that. And I don't know that I want to try. And especially with society at large. So I'm not really convinced that anything I would do would make things substantially better for any of the internet acquaintances that I've had as the character Retera. No matter how much money I would make. I don't know how to do that. Accordingly, maybe it doesn't matter if I pretend to be a millionaire, because it doesn't. It's not useful. It wouldn't change anything. Still though, I wonder why he said that. I don't know. I gotta sleep. Very important to get some good rest. Very important to get some good rest. I don't know if I'll publish this video because if I do, I feel like someone would use it against me. And I don't even know how. Isn't that kind of sad? I feel like that's kind of sad. I don't know how. I don't know how they use it against me. And the worst part is if they did, you get back to this problem of some of the worst things in my life. I could sit here and try to blame someone else, but really kind of got to blame myself. And I guess that would be the same way with the YouTube channel. Gotta blame myself. If it leads to somebody, coming taking advantage of me for telling my story about awful stuff. But hey, those healthcare workers, if there's somebody who gets to go to the afterlife, I hope it's them, because jeez, imagine having a canned phrase in your brain telling someone that they're young, as if that was the reason that they did something extremely stupid. You're not allowed to just look at them and be like, you did something extremely stupid. But also, is that how we treat our young people in the country where I grew up? That the young people are so ignorant about their problems that they're all ending up in that situation. The green country I walked through when I got off that airplane to go and visit those two men, that I'll bet those people, they still have a society. They still have a people. They aren't 300 pounds on the TV. They're talking to each other. They're walking. They're biking from here to there. Biking with their babies in a little carriage. Healthy enough to have babies. And then they're probably not infected with the virus that I'm infected with. But if they are, they're probably not infecting all their kids with it. So they probably don't have medical employees who have to get into that soul crunching existence where you would get used to just telling someone, well, you're young, that's why. These things happen when you're young. Even though I'm freaking old, when I was young, that didn't happen. You know why? Because I made better decisions. That's my reality. Okay, we can all have our own take on reality, what we're gonna say, but that's what I would say. That's what I would say. I don't know. All right, I gotta sleep. Till next time, Warcraft. I'll cook up some VO AI garbage. I was doing some of that recently. Could be fun. Maybe I'll do some more. I got this really awesome VO AI video. I tried to make it like embody Cockput from the YouTube comments. I was like, you know what we need? He made some comment, or he was like, less AI shenanigans and more War Smash. And so I asked the AI from VO to like render like an epic scene of like an orc war chief with this like beautiful sunset behind him with some like clouds and stuff, and he's like, less AI shenanigans and more War Smash, and the lightning strikes behind him. It was great.
The best part was the AI actually created a video of pretty much exactly that. It was really good. I don't know where society's headed, but it was a really good video. It's only 8 seconds long right now, but they're gonna be working on that and make it longer. What a world.